The chandeliers in the Oakwood Country Club ballroom dripped crystals like frozen tears, each one reflecting the forced gaiety of my father-in-law, Harold Green's retirement party. 40 years as a fire captain, a hero, and I, Lena, his son Marcus's wife of 10 years, felt the familiar knot of anxiety tighten in my stomach. A premonition as cold and hard as the ice sculptures melting slowly on the buffet table. Tonight, like so many nights before it, I was braced for the subtle, and sometimes not so subtle art of Sandra Green's exclusionary tactics. Sandra, Harold's wife, my mother-in-law, stood at a polished mahogany podium, a regal, almost imperious figure in a gown that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Her smile, perfectly painted, didn't quite reach her eyes. She tapped the microphone, a delicate, almost predatory gesture. Friends, family. Her voice, smooth as silk and just as slippery, resonated through the ballroom. Tonight, as we honor Harold's incredible 4 decades of service, we also want to present some special tokens of our immense gratitude to those who have been his true pillars of strength, his unwavering support system. My breath hitched. Here we go. She called up her sons first, David, the successful surgeon, and Michael, the investment banker. Each received a heavy, gold-engraved watch, presented with a flourish and a maternal kiss. Then her daughters, Emily and Sarah, both married to equally suitable men, were summoned. They received delicate, diamond-studded gold necklaces, clasped around their necks by Sandra herself, accompanied by murmured endearments. Finally, each of Harold's 7 grandchildren, including my own 8-year-old daughter, Maya, were called forward. One by one, they were presented with a beautifully handwritten letter from Sandra and Harold, and a small, antique silver charm, apparently from a cherished family heirloom bracelet Sandra was now sharing with the next generation. The music swelled, a soft, sentimental melody. Sandra beamed at her assembled family, a tableau of perfect green lineage. Then, her gaze, sharp and calculating, swept the room, snagging on mine, pinning me to my chair. There was a glint in her eye, a flicker of something that looked disturbingly like triumph. The room, sensing a shift, grew expectantly, uncomfortably silent. "And that," Sandra announced, her voice dripping with a false, cloying sweetness that didn't quite mask the underlying malice, "concludes our tokens of appreciation for Harold's true family, those who share his blood, his history, and his enduring legacy." She paused, letting the words hang in the air, heavy and loaded. Then, her gaze, laser-focused, returned to me. I was seated at a table with Marcus, who was looking decidedly uncomfortable, and Maya, who was happily examining her new silver charm. "Oh, Lena, dear," Sandra cooed, her voice now laced with a patronizing pity that was somehow worse than outright hostility. "I'm afraid there's nothing for you." A small, almost imperceptible gasp rippled through the nearby tables. "After all," she continued, her smile widening, "you're not really family, are you? More like very dedicated, very loyal staff." A few uncomfortable, quickly suppressed titters came from the direction of Sandra's closest friends, her society cronies. The air crackled with a mixture of embarrassment and a perverse, vicarious thrill. But Sandra wasn't finished. Oh no. She then gestured, with a perfectly manicured hand, towards a large silver tray laden with champagne flutes near the catering station. "Perhaps," she suggested, her voice now brisk, businesslike, "you could make yourself useful, dear, and help the servers? Some of the guests at the back tables look a little parched." A roar of humiliation, so loud it was almost deafening, filled my head. A cold, familiar dread, the kind that had been my unwelcome companion for a decade, washed over me. 10 years. 10 years of trying, of bending over backwards, of swallowing my pride, of patiently, persistently attempting to chip away at the wall of ice Sandra had so expertly constructed around me. 10 years of baking for family events no one asked me to cater, of remembering obscure anniversaries, of sending thoughtful gifts that were rarely acknowledged. All of it, in this single, brutal moment, reduced to staff. Marcus sat beside me, frozen, his face pale, his knuckles white where he gripped his water glass. But he was utterly, devastatingly silent. Maya, bless her innocent heart, looked up at me, her brow furrowed with confusion. "Mommy," she whispered, her small voice carrying in the sudden, suffocating silence. "Why didn't Nana Sandra give you a present too? Aren't you family?" Her question, so simple, so pure, was a fresh, agonizing knife to my already bleeding heart. For a decade, I had been Marcus Green's wife, and for a decade, I had been the outsider, the tolerated interloper, the woman who had somehow managed to snag one of their golden sons but who would never, ever truly belong. Sandra's campaign to marginalize me had been a masterclass in subtle, psychological warfare, interspersed with moments of more overt, undeniable cruelty. I was the one consistently talked over at family dinners, my opinions dismissed with a wave of her hand, my contributions to conversations casually ignored as if I hadn't spoken. I was the one who, by some strange, recurring coincidence, was always just out of frame in the countless family photos that adorned their perfectly appointed home. I was treated like a permanent guest, a tolerated, occasionally useful appendage to my husband and, by extension, my daughter, who, by virtue of her green blood, was at least granted conditional entry. I'd often felt like a shadow in the Green family, present but not truly seen. My edges blurred, my substance, my very identity, systematically denied, the constant, wearying effort of trying to earn my place, a place that Sandra seemed almost pathologically determined to withhold from me, had taken its toll, eroding my confidence, my sense of self, piece by painstaking piece. And Marcus, my husband, a good man in many ways, kind, intelligent, a loving father to Maya. But when it came to his mother, he was conflict avoidant to a crippling fault. His usual refrain, after yet another of Sandra's thinly veiled slights, was always the same. "Oh, Lena, that's just Mom. You know how she is. Don't take it so personally. She doesn't really mean it." But oh, she did mean it. Every cutting remark, every pointed exclusion, every dismissive glance. She meant it with every fiber of her being, and his refusal to see it, to acknowledge it, to defend me was a wound that festered, deeper and more painful with each passing year. Just that morning, I had been filled with a fragile, tentative hope. I had meticulously put the finishing touches on a deeply personal, handcrafted scrapbook for Harold, my own, heartfelt tribute to the one Green who had occasionally shown me a sliver of warmth, a flicker of acceptance. It wasn't just a collection of photographs, though there were many of those. Harold as a young, brave firefighter, newspaper clippings detailing his heroism, pictures of him with his sons, his daughters, his cherished grandchildren. It was a narrative of his life, his service, his legacy, told through the eyes of those who loved and admired him. I had painstakingly tracked down some of his old colleagues from the fire department, men who had served alongside him for decades, and solicited their favorite memories, their personal tributes. I had even managed to coax a heartfelt, if somewhat brief, letter out of Marcus, a testament to the quiet, often unspoken bond he shared with his father. My own contribution, my letter to Harold, was the longest, the most difficult, the most emotionally raw. I had poured my heart onto those pages, thanking him not just for his 40 years of dedicated service to the community, but for the small, almost imperceptible moments of kindness he had shown me over the challenging, often lonely, landscape of the past 10 years. for being the one Green who occasionally made me feel seen, who would ask about my work, who remembered my late mother's name and once shared a surprisingly tender memory of her. He was the single, faint glimmer of hope in the otherwise chilly, unwelcoming terrain of the Green family. The scrapbook was more than just a gift. It was a desperate, hopeful plea for true belonging, a testament to my unwavering, if often unreciprocated, commitment to this family. I had given the scrapbook to Marcus that morning, beautifully wrapped in paper adorned with vintage fire trucks, tied with a simple crimson ribbon. "Please, Marcus," I'd urged, my voice earnest. "Please make sure your dad gets this before the party. Privately, it's really important to me." Marcus, already distracted by his own pre-party nerves, his mind on his speech, his suit, the logistics of the evening, had mumbled a distracted, "Yeah, sure, Lena, whatever," and tossed the carefully crafted gift unceremoniously onto the back seat of our car. A sickening lurch had twisted in my stomach even then. Now, standing in that ballroom, publicly humiliated, a fresh wave of dread washed over me. Had he even remembered to give it to Harold? Or was my heartfelt offering still lying forgotten, unseen in the back of our car? The party atmosphere, from the moment we'd arrived, had been a carefully constructed facade of celebration. A shimmering veneer of joy stretched taut over a seething undercurrent of unspoken tensions. I had tried, as I always did, to play my part. I'd complimented Sandra on the extravagant decorations, a compliment she had accepted with a curt, regal nod, as if it were merely her due. I'd made polite, stilted small talk with distant Green relatives who, I was fairly certain, barely remembered my name from one year to the next, let alone the fact that I was married to their nephew or cousin. My daughter, Maya, bless her innocent heart, was thrilled, of course, dressed in her prettiest party dress, her eyes wide with excitement for Grandpa Harold's big night. She was a bundle of pure, unadulterated joy. This was for Maya, too. I had told myself, a desperate mantra. I was trying to build bridges for my daughter, trying to ensure her place in this family, even if the bridges to me had long since been burned, their ashes scattered to the wind. But beneath the glittering surface of the celebration, the familiar, suffocating tension was a live wire, thrumming with a dangerous energy. Sandra's critical gaze followed my every move, her eyes cataloging, judging, dissecting. Marcus, ever attuned to his mother's moods, would subtly, almost imperceptibly, steer me away from conversations with her, a preemptive strike against potential conflict. My sisters-in-law, Emily and Sarah, masters of the polite dismissal, would offer a tight, fleeting smile before turning back to their own animated, exclusive chatter. It was always a performance, a precarious, exhausting tightrope walk. And tonight, that rope felt particularly frayed, stretched ubistveno thin, and now, the silver tray of drinks. Sandra's smug, triumphant expression, the look of a predator who had finally, definitively, cornered her prey. The entire ballroom, hundreds of eyes, either staring at me with a mixture of pity and morbid curiosity, or, even worse, pointedly looking away in embarrassment. Their silence a deafening chorus of complicity. A burning, scalding flush crept up my neck, spreading across my cheeks. The sting of unshed, humiliated tears pricked at the back of my eyes. I had the desperate, overwhelming urge to either scream at the top of my lungs or simply vanish into thin air, to dematerialize on the spot. My hands, trembling almost uncontrollably, gripped the cold, unyielding metal rim of the champagne tray Sandra had so cruelly gestured towards. It felt like a brand, a physical manifestation of my shame, my outsider status. I risked a glance at Marcus, a desperate arm-pleading look. Surely now he would say something, do something. He was staring at his mother, his mouth slightly agape, a look of shock. Yes, but also a dawning, Horrifying helplessness. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He didn't defend me. He didn't even meet my eyes. In that single, devastating moment, something inside me, something vital and fundamental, shattered. A final, fragile thread of hope. The one that had stubbornly persisted for 10 long years. The hope that my husband would, eventually, when it truly mattered, stand up for me. For us. Snapped. Maya's innocent question, louder this time. Her voice clear and piping in the sudden, intense silence. Mommy, why are you holding the drink tray? Aren't you a guest too? Nana Sandra gave me a present. The guileless innocence of her words was a fresh, agonizing stab of pain, twisting the knife already embedded in my heart. 10 years, 10 long, wearying years of swallowing slights, of making excuses for Marcus, of diligently, thanklessly trying to be the perfect daughter-in-law, the perfect wife, the perfect mother. For what? For this? To be publicly humiliated, to be summarily demoted to the role of unpaid, unacknowledged help in front of everyone we knew. Everyone who mattered? The invisible woman, finally made glaringly visible, only to be publicly shamed. And Marcus, his silence was the loudest, most damning sound in that cavernous room, a resounding, unequivocal confirmation of every fear I'd ever harbored about my true place in this family, about my place in his heart when it came to his formidable, unyielding mother. I could feel 100 pairs of eyes on me, dissecting me, pitying me. I couldn't breathe. The air in the ballroom felt thick, heavy, suffocating, with a deliberate, almost exaggerated slowness. My hands shaking so violently I was surprised I didn't drop it. I set the silver tray down on a nearby, linen-draped table. I would not serve them. I would not be their entertainment, their sacrificial lamb. I would not participate in my own degradation. I reached for Maya's small, warm hand, my touch surprisingly steady. "Come on, sweetie," I whispered, my voice choked, raspy. I think it's time for us to go home now." I began to walk towards the grand, imposing ballroom doors, a slow, deliberate, agonizing exit. Each step felt like wading through molasses, a heavy, symbolic testament to the years of endured indignities, the accumulated weight of 1,000 paper cuts to the soul. I could feel Sandra's triumphant, venomous gaze burning into my back. I half expected Marcus to call out, to stop me, to say something, anything. He didn't. The silence from his direction was a gaping, echoing void. This was it. The end of the line. No more trying. No more hoping. No more contorting myself into unnatural shapes to try and fit into a space that was clearly, deliberately, cruelly, never, ever meant for me. Sandra had finally, unequivocally, made her position clear, and Marcus, by his deafening, damning silence, had made his choice. I was done. Done with the greens. Done with the charade. Done. Just as Maya and I reached the ornate, polished brass double doors, ready to make our escape into the anonymous sanctuary of the night, a sharp, unexpected crackle from the sound system cut through the suffocating, pregnant silence. Then, a distinct cough, amplified, echoing through the vast room. Harold Green's voice, gravelly from years of shouting over sirens and smoke, but firm, resonant, filled the ballroom. "Actually, Sandra, my dear," he began, his tone deceptively mild. "There is one more gift. One very important gift that I was saving." He paused, then repeated, his voice louder now, cutting through the confused murmurs that had started to ripple through the crowd. I said, "There is one more gift, and it's for someone very special." All heads, which had been either staring at me or studiously avoiding my gaze, now swiveled towards the stage. I stopped, my hand frozen on the cold brass doorknob, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Maya looked up at me, her eyes wide with a mixture of confusion and dawning excitement. Then back at the stage where Harold was now standing, a small, dark velvet-covered box held carefully in one hand, and something else. A large, beautifully wrapped, book-shaped object, tucked securely under his other arm. My breath caught. It was the scrapbook. My scrapbook. Marcus had given it to him after all. Or perhaps, more likely, Harold had found it himself. "Lena?" Harold's voice, warm now, inviting, resonated across the crowded room. "Lena, my dear, could you and little Maya please come up here for a moment? There's someone very, very special I need to acknowledge properly." His eyes, clear and direct, found mine across the sea of faces. And for the first time that night, for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I saw not pity, not condescension, but a fierce, protective warmth. A glint of something that looked remarkably like righteous anger, hesitantly, almost reluctantly, with Maya's small, trusting hand clutching mine tightly. I turned and began to walk back through the silent, watching crowd, towards the brightly lit stage. It felt like the longest, most surreal walk of my life. But this time, it wasn't a walk of shame, a retreat into humiliated obscurity. This time, it felt like a slow, hesitant advance towards a dawning, incredulous, almost unbearable hope. Sandra was watching, her face a mask of stunned, indignant disbelief, her earlier triumph visibly faltering, crumbling around the edges like a poorly constructed sandcastle. Marcus was staring, first at his father, then at me. A complex, unreadable mixture of emotions warring on his pale face: shock, guilt, confusion, and something else. Something I couldn't quite decipher. Harold waited, with a quiet, dignified patience, until Maya and I were standing beside him on the stage. He gestured gently for Maya to stand close, a protective arm around her small shoulders. He cleared his throat, his gaze sweeping out over the assembled guests, lingering for a moment, just a moment, on his wife's thunderstruck face. "For 40 years, Harold began, his voice strong, steady, imbued with a lifetime of authority and quiet conviction. I've served this community. I've run into burning buildings when every instinct screamed to run out. I faced danger. I've witnessed tragedy. And I've learned a few fundamental truths about what truly matters in this life: loyalty, courage, unconditional love. And I've learned, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that these things, these essential qualities, aren't defined by bloodlines or fancy surnames. They are defined by action, by unwavering presence, by the unwavering commitment of the heart." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Tonight," he continued, "we've celebrated my retirement, and I've been overwhelmed by the kindness, the generosity, the wonderful tributes I've received. But there's one person in this room who has shown me these qualities: loyalty, presence, and a depth of quiet, steadfast love, consistently, selflessly, every single day for the past 10 years. Often without thanks, often without acknowledgement, often, I suspect, when it was damn hard to do so." He held up the scrapbook, my scrapbook. His calloused firefighter's hands surprisingly gentle as he cradled it. "My daughter-in-law, Lena," he said, his voice clear, unambiguous, "gave this to me earlier today. She probably doesn't know that my son, Marcus—" He paused, a subtle but unmistakable edge to his voice. In his usual, somewhat distracted fashion, managed to leave it in the car. I only found it by sheer chance, tucked away under a pile of other things, about an hour before this party started. Marcus flinched visibly, a flush creeping up his neck. I've had a chance to look through it. Harold went on, his voice cracking slightly with an emotion he didn't try to hide. And let me tell you all. He took a deep breath. This book, this incredible testament, filled with cherished memories, with heartfelt words from old friends and colleagues, with beautiful, innocent drawings from my granddaughter. This is, without a single doubt, the single most meaningful, most precious, most profoundly touching gift I have ever received in my entire life. His gaze found mine, warm, direct, unwavering. It came from someone who, according to some in this room, isn't real family. Someone who, by some twisted definition, supposedly owes me nothing. Yet, she has given me, and she has given my son, and she has given my granddaughter, everything that truly, deeply matters. She has loved my son, unconditionally, even when, if I'm being honest, he didn't always make it easy for her. She has raised my granddaughter, our Maya, to be a kind, intelligent, compassionate, wonderful human being. She has shown up, time and time and time again, for this family, with a grace, a patience, and a quiet strength that has frankly astounded me, even when this family, or certain members of it. His eyes flicked momentarily towards Sandra. Didn't always show up for her. Then, Harold turned directly to me, his eyes shining with an intensity that made my heart ache. "Lena," he said, his voice imbued with a solemn, almost sacred weight. "I want everyone in this room, everyone listening, to understand something. Something crystal clear. Family isn't defined by shared DNA, or by a common surname, or by who sits where at the Thanksgiving table. Family is defined by love, by loyalty, by unwavering presence, by the quiet, steadfast willingness to stand by someone, to support them, to cherish them, through thick and thin, through good times and bad. And you, my dear Lena, you have shown all of us, more of that true, authentic family spirit than many people in this room who happen to share my name." His gaze, pointed and unwavering, swept pointedly over Sandra and his other children, who now looked distinctly uncomfortable. He opened the small, dark velvet box he held in his other hand. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded white satin, was an antique gold ring, simple yet elegant, set with a single, deep green, captivating emerald. "This," Harold said, his voice thick with emotion, "was my mother's ring. She wore it every single day of her adult life, until the day she passed. Before she died, she asked me to give it to the woman I believed would truly carry on her spirit, a spirit of quiet strength, of unwavering kindness, of seeing the best in people even when they didn't deserve it, of mending fences rather than building walls, of loving fiercely, protectively, and unconditionally. I've held on to it for many, many years, waiting for the right person, the right moment. Tonight, I know, with an absolute certainty I haven't felt in a long time, exactly who it belongs to." Harold took my trembling hand in his strong, warm one. "Lena," he said, his voice resonating with a profound sincerity that brought tears to my eyes. "You are my family, not by marriage, not by obligation, but by choice. My choice. And by your own unwavering, generous, beautiful heart. And no one." His voice rose then, firm, resolute, unequivocal. "No one in this room, or outside of it, has the right to tell you, or to make you feel otherwise." With a gentle, almost reverent touch, he slipped the emerald ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made for me. A wave of emotion, so powerful, so overwhelming, it almost buckled my knees, washed over me. The years of feeling invisible, of being the perpetual outsider, of shrinking myself, diminishing myself, to try and fit into their narrow, exclusionary definition of family. All of it began to crack, to crumble, to fall away, like shackles I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying. The ballroom was utterly, profoundly silent for a long, breathless beat. Then, applause started. Hesitant at first, a smattering of tentative claps, then growing stronger, more confident, more genuine. As the meaning, the power of Harold's words began to sink in, it wasn't a thunderous, raucous ovation, but rather a warm, sustained wave of acknowledgement, of dawning understanding, of respect. Sandra, however, was not to be silenced so easily. She stood abruptly, her face a furious, mottled red, her carefully constructed composure shattered. "Harold," she hissed, her voice sharp with outrage. "How dare you? This is an absolute outrage. She is—" Harold raised a hand, a gesture of quiet but undeniable authority, cutting her off mid-sentence. His voice, when he spoke, was like steel, cold and unyielding. "Sandra," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "This is my retirement celebration. It is a celebration of my life, my service, and the people who have truly mattered to me. It is not a damn courtroom, nor is it a competition. I have spoken my truth. If anyone here, anyone at all, has a problem with what I've said, or with who I choose to consider my family, the doors," he gestured towards the exit, "are right there. You are more than free to leave." No one moved, not a soul. Sandra, her face a mask of incandescent fury and utter disbelief, slowly, almost painfully, sank back into her chair, her jaw clenched so tightly I could see the muscles bulging, her eyes fixed, defeated, on the plush ballroom carpet. For the first time in the 10 long years I had known her, Sandra Green was well and truly silenced. Marcus finally moved. He walked, almost hesitantly, onto the stage. His eyes filled with a complex, agonizing mixture of shame, awe, and a dawning, unfamiliar pride as he looked first at me, then at his father. He took the microphone from Harold's outstretched hand. "Dad," he began, his voice thick with emotion. "Lena, I should have said something, years ago. Tonight. Lena." He turned to me, his eyes pleading for an understanding I wasn't sure I could give. "You never ever deserved any of that. None of it. I am so profoundly sorry." I looked at him. The raw, searing anger I had felt just moments before still there. A dull, throbbing ache. But now, a tiny, hesitant sliver of something else, too. Perhaps, just perhaps, the faintest glimmer of a new beginning. "Don't be sorry, Marcus," I said, my voice quiet but firm, surprisingly steady. "Just start speaking up when it matters." Maya, who had been watching the entire exchange with wide, preternaturally observant eyes, stepped forward, tugging on Harold's hand. He smiled, a genuine, loving smile, and gently helped her reach the microphone. "My mommy made that special book for you, Grandpa," Maya announced, her small voice surprisingly clear and confident in the suddenly attentive room. "And she told me that love makes a family. And Grandpa, you just said that too. So now," she beamed, "we all match." A ripple of warm, genuine laughter, a sound of pure, unadulterated delight, went through the room. The applause this time was softer, warmer, more heartfelt, a collective sigh of relief and shared humanity. Harold beamed, his eyes shining, and ruffled Maya's hair. "Out of the mouths of babes, eh?" He chuckled. "That's the perfect way to end this. Wouldn't you all agree?" The band, taking their cue, struck up a lively, upbeat tune. The oppressive, suffocating atmosphere that had choked the ballroom just moments before had miraculously lifted, replaced by something lighter, warmer, more real. Several guests, even some of Marcus's siblings who had previously maintained a cool, polite distance, approached me, offering tentative hugs, quiet, almost shame-faced words of apology for their past silence. Genuine compliments on the scrapbook. Harold was now proudly, almost reverently, displaying to anyone who came near. For the rest of the evening, I barely left Harold's side. We looked through the scrapbook together, page by page, Harold pointing out old friends, his eyes misting over at Maya's charmingly clumsy drawings of him in his firefighter's helmet. We danced, a slightly awkward but joyful shuffle, to the band's cheerful music. Maya danced with her grandpa, her face alight with pure, unadulterated joy, beaming up at him with an adoration that was beautiful to behold. Sandra remained seated, a thundercloud in the corner of the ballroom. Her power, her influence, visibly, palpably diminished. Marcus hovered nearby, attentive to me in a way he hadn't been in years, a new respect, a new awareness in his eyes. Before we left, as the party was winding down, Harold pulled me aside, his hand resting gently on my arm. "That ring is yours now, Lena," he said, his voice gruff with an emotion he clearly wasn't used to showing. "It belongs on your finger. Don't you ever let anyone, not even my own damn stubborn wife, make you feel like you have to earn it, or that you don't belong here. You've belonged in this family for years, Lena. For years. I just made sure everyone else finally damn well knew it tonight. You didn't need my approval. My dear girl. You earned your place. Your rightful place. Long ago. I just wanted the rest of the world to finally acknowledge it. Driving home that night, the cool, smooth weight of the emerald ring on my finger felt like a talisman, a tangible symbol of a battle hard won. Not by me, perhaps, but for me. For 10 long, wearying years, I had tried to earn my place, to be seen, to be accepted. Harold Green didn't just give me a ring. He gave me back my voice, my visibility, my stolen sense of self. He didn't just call me family. He declared it, unequivocally, forcing everyone else in that room, in that family, to finally, belatedly, listen. The silence from Sandra, which had once been a weapon wielded against me with such devastating precision, was no longer a source of pain. It was simply distance. A distance I was more than happy to maintain. Things changed after that night. Slowly, subtly, but surely. Marcus, as if a spell had been broken, found his voice. He started to stand up for me. For us. In small, everyday ways that mattered more than any grand gesture. The shadows in our marriage, the ones cast by his mother's disapproval and his own passive complicity, began to recede. Maya, bless her wise little heart, proudly told everyone at school that her mommy and her grandpa were twins in their hearts. And maybe, just maybe, they were. The scrapbook. Harold's most treasured possession, now sat in a place of honor on his fireplace mantel. He told me he looked at it every Sunday morning, a quiet ritual, and that it reminded him. He said that the quietest love is often the truest, the biggest, the most enduring. I still wear the ring, my grandmother-in-law's emerald, every single day. It's a reminder, a promise. I hold my daughter's hand, and I carry with me the profound, life-altering truth that Harold Green, in his wisdom and his courage, had gifted me that night. I am not an outsider. I am not a guest in my own story. I was, and I always will be, real family, and from that day forward, I started to live as if I truly, deeply, finally believed it. But it does make you ponder, doesn't it? When you've been consistently marginalized, disrespected, and emotionally wounded by a partner's family, and your partner, The person who is supposed to be your staunchest ally repeatedly fails to support or protect you. What does it truly take to heal that profound breach of trust within the marriage itself? Even if a respected family elder, like Harold, finally intervenes so positively and powerfully? A. The partner's sincere, heartfelt apology, coupled with consistent, observable, and lasting change behavior, can, over time, eventually rebuild the shattered trust and heal the relationship. B. Some wounds, some betrayals, are simply too deep, too fundamental. The partner's consistent failure to protect you, to prioritize your well-being, fundamentally, irrevocably alters the very foundation of the relationship, regardless of later apologies or outside validation from others. I'd be interested to know your thoughts.